Welcome back to Yoshi Entertainment, everybody. So just recently, Tamera Mowry's husband, Adam Housley, went very viral for the wrong reasons. I've said before, I'll say it again. If you're going to be an example, be a good one. If you're not going to be a good example, by default, you will be a bad one. And he set a very bad example just recently with a Twitter post that he made on Twitter. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that people cannot bring certain issues to the forefront and talk about them or expose what's going on. Although in order to do that, one, you have to know what you're talking about. Two, you actually have to know the truth. And three, you cannot be coming from a hypocritical or partial disposition. You can't be coming from a privileged, disrespectful, racist disposition. You're wrong if any of that applies to you and you're calling yourself trying to call somebody out or expose certain issues. There's always been talk amongst everybody of people misusing food stamps, different privileges that we do have that we can acquire. Now, not everybody, of course, misuses food stamps. I'll even go to say I think most people who have them or can acquire them don't. And just because there are some people who do, that doesn't mean everybody should be denied who could have them otherwise food stamps. You shouldn't just be like, oh, let's just get rid of it altogether, because some people are misusing them, because you are hurting the people who need them who are not using them wrongly. And that's not fair to those people, obviously. And again, this is where not having a partial disposition comes in. If you're going to do that, then you have to apply that to everything. But you see, the issue with these conversations is that a lot of these people who start them are speaking from a privileged disposition. They are also taking advantage of privileges, priorities, that they don't want the same thing to be said about them. Now, I'm going to make it make sense in a little bit if you just stick with me. Now, Adam got onto the internet and decided to fix his fingers to type, and I quote, "As a kid who grew up in neighborhood grocery stores since I was 5, pause. If you are befuddled, so am I. I'm just saying it exactly the way he wrote it. Unpause. I can't tell you how many times I saw people come in and buy crap food for their kids with food stamps, then open the wallet and use cash for liquor, beer, wine, and cigarettes. Then there are those who would repeatedly buy a lemon or a lime, get the change and walk out the door and throw them away and do it again until they had enough change to buy cigarettes or alcohol. As a kid, it pissed me off because there are some people who could really use the help, and then there are these others working the system." End quote. Now, before we get to the Twitter responses, there's just a few things that I myself have to address with that statement. First of all, no 5-year-old will have the level of understanding that is required to even know what food stamps are, even if that's something that he saw. He wouldn't even understand it at 5. This would have been something someone else had to explain to him. That's the first thing. The second thing, what kind of weirdo just stands around the corner and watches people and how they spend their food stamps allegedly? That's weird behavior. And I get that he was 5. He claims he was 5 in this alleged story, but still. Are y'all familiar with all the jokes that people like to make about Batman? How he beat and folded people over like ones and beat them into oblivion and then hit them with the "now talk." Batman wouldn't have been able to beat that information out of me. Because again, it makes him look like a weirdo, like he has a problem. That's number 2. Number 3, if he really expects us to believe that his privileged, white, entitled self was born anywhere near anybody who had to use food stamps or in an environment where he or his family had to use food stamps, he's crazy. You couldn't pay me to believe that he grew up in that kind of environment. And for anybody who believes that I'm going a bit overboard with my refusal to believe that, oh, just wait a few more minutes. Now, the fourth thing was, why was he all in these people's business? One could say that he needed to be in a child's place since allegedly he was a child when all this was allegedly taking place. I don't believe that it was, but for the sake of the alleged argument, he should have stayed in a child's place and minded his own business. And he even said in this alleged story that he posted that they spent the food stamps on the actual food, the crap food that he was talking about for their kids, and then used their money, allegedly, to buy this other stuff. So what you really witnessed were people taking care of their kids with the food stamps that they had and using their money to buy stuff that they either couldn't use the food stamps on or didn't want to use the food stamps on because they felt like if this is what I'm going to buy, then I should use my own money that I worked for to buy it. So it also seems like here that he's mad that these grown behind people were using food stamps to take care of their kids and then using their hard-earned money that they work for to buy other stuff that he felt like they shouldn't be buying. I've said before, people should not smoke and drink because it affects their health negatively. But from what he said, from what he typed, they weren't using the food stamps to buy that. They were using their own money that they worked for again. So what really is the issue? What really is even his argument? And then number 5, him claiming that he saw people use the food stamps for a little to nothing on random stuff that they didn't even want and then get the money back in cash so they could spend it on something else. All of what he said was challenged in these Twitter comments. And I'm going to talk about some other things that also challenges what he said that maybe he should have thought about before he posted what he posted. One person in the Twitter comments posted, and I quote, "So you just hung out in the corners of stores and observed grown behind people collecting change over time to buy cigarettes and alcohol at 5 years old. Just pulled up a seat and sat there watching folks. Just knew everything at 5 years old." Another person in the Twitter comment said, and I quote, "The system changed. You no longer get money back and they paid cash for those items because they aren't covered under benefits. But I guess poor people should never have anything enjoyable and you grew up wealthy. You have no idea what it's like to be on assistance." End quote. Now, once again, I'm not in support of people ruining their health with alcohol and cigarettes. Although there are some people, maybe they just want to spend the food stamps on some ice cream. Can you believe that there are some people cannot afford ice cream at the dollar store, at the grocery store, because they have their money going into everywhere else that they're barely even making enough of? With food stamps, they can live a little bit more of a decent life, have a few more pleasantries that they would not have been able to afford otherwise. Now, this one person said, and I quote, "You can't get change from food stamps. Nice story, though." End quote. So like I said, these people are challenging what he said. Another person said, and I quote, "This you, honey?" and posted a picture of him and Tamera, who's unfortunately catching strays because of him. And they also posted this either article or an excerpt from an article that says, and I quote, "Adam is a 6th generation from the Bay Area and was born and raised in wine country, growing up with a vineyard in his front yard." Even another Twitter user said, and I quote, "The streets are saying you're from wine country, yet you're speaking on neighborhood grocery stores as if this was a corner store in the South Central LA or something. Your experience isn't adding up." I mean, they were really going in on him because of these out of touch statements he was making. Another person said, "Do front yard vineyards have corner grocers?" And another person said, "Why did you just lie like this?" Another person said, and I quote, "Fitting that you reported for Fox News as you picked up their love of lies and misinformation." End quote. Another person said, and I quote, "What exactly do you mean by grew up in neighborhood grocery store? It's since you were 5. End quote. Sister, what he meant to say was he grew up around neighborhood grocery stores since he was 5. That's what he meant to type instead, I'm assuming, which is even ridiculous now that you think about it, because that man came from too much money, too privileged of a background to be making those kind of grammatical errors on Twitter of all places. Now, the brother below her said, and I quote, "You a doggone lie. This never happened. And the fact that you fixed your fingers to type this hogwash is crazy." End quote. Another person in the Twitter comments posted, and I quote, I remember vividly when I was 5 what people spent their money on and specifically what type of currency they used on each product." End quote. And he was being sarcastic in case anybody didn't catch that. The young lady below him said, "Adam, what in the world are you talking about? Laughing my butt off." Another person said, and I quote, "The fact that you spent your time worried about what people bought at the corner store tells me a lot. Laughing my butt off. Whenever I went to the corner store and saw people buying beer, chips, etc., do you know what I did? Minded my business. You should try that." End quote. Another person said, "So you just been holding this since you were 5? 5 years old. Now, allegedly, after everybody on YouTube and Twitter dragged him for filth, allegedly, he came back with another post. This post was deleted allegedly, and he came back talking about how he was hacked, and the people who know him, they know what's going on. And it's sad because there are actually people who have their social media accounts actually getting hacked. And a lot of these celebrities, they say things that they have no business saying. And then when it gives them the backlash, they should have been smart enough to know that we're going to already get. Then they try to backtrack and say, oh, I was hacked, to try and smooth it over. Instead of saying, you know what, y'all are right, I shouldn't have said that. That was wild of me to even put out there in the atmosphere, so to speak. And it also could have been, if this allegedly did happen, because once again, his wife, Tamera, was getting a lot of backlash as well, which was really messed up. She didn't deserve that. He was the one who posted what he posted, not her. Now, some people were saying, girl, why did you marry him? Because allegedly this ain't the first time that he done said some crazy mess that came off as very entitled and privileged and low-key kind of racist. He's been doing stuff like this allegedly in the past. That's why a lot of people didn't believe him, and once again was calling him out for coming across as very far removed from the current society, being very apart from what actual people go through, regular, everyday, ordinary people go through. His lack of a perspective. Now, do I believe if he did say he was hacked to smooth it over, that he did it because his wife was getting the backlash for what he did? I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all, because that's not how people like him operate. To be honest with y'all, I don't even believe that he loves Tamera. I'm going to be 100% honest. I don't believe he does. But that is a topic for a different video. Now, a lot of people felt like what he said was racially charged because they love to assume that only black people are the beneficiaries, if you will, of stuff like food stamps, or that it's mostly black people. Now, people have been saying that they've been researching that allegedly that there are statistics to disprove that say otherwise, that basically say the people who use food stamps more than anybody else is allegedly, drum roll please, surprise, surprise, white people. So he really made a very ignorant statement, because you can tell that it was racially charged. A lot of people do stuff like this. A lot of these political figures, or some of these people who have a large following, they make certain statements that are racially charged, that are very partial, that are disrespectful, stereotypical, aiming them at certain demographics, certain communities, only for us to find out what they're aiming, so to speak, at these people is actually true for themselves. Sometimes it's a projection. Sometimes it was their desperation to take a very prejudiced or partial shot at somebody, a particular group of people, demographic of people, community of people. But they were so ignorant because they didn't actually take the time to do research or make sure, like I said before at the beginning of the video, that they knew what they were talking about, the actual truth, and that they weren't being a hypocrite before they took that shot. And they certainly didn't make sure they weren't speaking from a privileged perspective. These people like him, they don't have a perspective that the usual individuals, the everyday individuals who don't have his kind of money, that don't live in his same tax bracket, he does not share their perspective. So he could say anything based off of what his goofy mind thinks. Little does he know it's very far from the truth. Like whenever he said, oh, they were buying crap food for their children. And this is all centering around the allegations that Trump wants to remove the ability to spend the food stamps on junk food, not taking into mind that some people are only purchasing what's available to them or what they can afford. See, he'll make these statements, but then he doesn't want to have a conversation, a serious conversation, whenever people actually give him a rebuttal or bring up valid points. Like, well, why don't you and all of your white privilege and your influence talk to some of these people, go get with somebody in the government who actually has some power, with some of these politicians, some of these governors, and talk to them about why they seem to only build the really good grocery stores that have the actual wholesome whole foods and organic foods. Why they only put some of those places in the, and I quote, good places in town, the good areas of town. Whole food and organic food stores and grocery stores do exist, but explain to us why they're only available in certain places. There are whole cities that you can drive through where that stuff doesn't even exist. And you can only hope that some kind of organic selection is available to you within the local grocery stores. And even if they are, it's very scarce and it's very expensive. So once again, is it even available? And if it is available, is it affordable? There are some people, they go to the grocery store and they say, okay, I'm gonna make a salad for the kids. I'm gonna spend my money on some good whole foods, try and help them with their health, and it's the right thing to do. But we got lettuce, we got celery, we've got onions. All the not organic stuff is the cheapest stuff. Then you have the organic stuff that they're trying to charge out of the behind for. You know that if you buy the not organic stuff, you can buy more ingredients. You can buy more food. You can make your money stretch more. So again, is it available? Is it affordable? But they don't think about these things when they make these privileged comments online. Now, allegedly, he did make a post responding to the backlash. I don't know if this was before or after the alleged he was hacked thing. I'm not entirely sure, but he had the audacity to say that people were taking his words out of context, allegedly. And that's just one of the oldest excuses in the book. I've talked about that on this channel actually quite a few times in the past myself. How in the world are people going to take things out of context that you blatantly said, that you plainly stated? Now, one more thing that was, again, the hypocrisy of it all. He's a part of the same elite group of individuals, the upper class, who's benefiting off of those same people he's talking about eating the crap food and using the food stamps to do so. He's a part of that same group that's benefiting off of that. What he doesn't want is to be in hot water, because he was the main one who suggested that Trump should make it to where people can't use the food stamps on junk food, and then they end up using it on whole foods and healthy foods, and now they're healthier, and now Big Pharma and these other companies can't benefit off of them being sick as much anymore. He doesn't want those kind of problems on his plate, I don't think. And also the hypocrisy. One more thing. I know I said one more thing, but one more thing. Some people were mentioning on Twitter that him talking about people are misusing the food stamps is the pot calling the kettle black, because once again, the same upper class individuals that he is a part of, they like to, and y'all know I have to say allegedly, take advantage of tax cuts. Remember all that discourse that was going on about, oh, you rich people are doing stuff with the money that we, as the normal class citizens, middle and lower class citizens, would never be able to get away with. And y'all get away with it all the time, lining your pockets, while the majority of everybody else is struggling to make it by. The audacity of any of these rich, entitled individuals to fix their raggedy mouths to even insinuate that food stamps should be taken away, or talk about the people, the fewer people who are taking advantage of it, when they're taking advantage of other things themselves as rich and entitled people. They have no right to throw stones. Hypocrites. Pots calling kettles black all day. Anyways, I've been talking too long. Y'all let me know what y'all thinking, how y'all feel about all of this down in the comments below. Respectfully, don't forget to like and subscribe. Y'all all have a very blessed, beautiful, and safe day.